from the USA. And out of the connectivity issues, he has shared his recorded version, and we are going to play it for you. He is Dr. Junaid S. Ahmad. He is the professor William and Mary Law School, United States of America. He would enlighten us vis-a-vis the criminal justice system in the US and Pakistan, a critical appraisal. He is the professor there in USA, but we are having the privilege of having him as a faculty member in this college for good 3 years as well. He has been teaching us all 3 batches online. So we are here to have his views. Dr. Junaid S. Ahmad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, faculty and students, it's wonderful to be with you, even though it's virtual, at this very important conference being sponsored by Kahuta Law College, with which I am proudly associated. And what I will try to attempt to do today is to provide the context of the criminal justice system of the United States, and then attempt to, in very general terms, compare it with the criminal justice system in Pakistan. So, the unique characteristic is the adversarial legal process in the United States. It is important to first define and delineate the key features of the adversarial system. In the US, the criminal justice system is primarily adversarial. The prosecution and defense are distinct entities, each presenting its case before a neutral judge or jury. The focus is on a contest between 2 parties, with the belief that truth emerges from this structured conflict. The American criminal justice system is known for its distinct reliance on this adversarial legal process, a framework that emphasizes the competition between opposing parties to uncover the truth. Unlike the inquisitorial systems prevalent in many other countries, the American system relies heavily on the premise that justice is best achieved through a structured, contentious exchange, where the defense and prosecution present their cases before an impartial judge or jury. This unique characteristic has deep historical roots and remains a fundamental aspect of the American legal landscape today. The adversarial system is built on the idea that the best way to determine the truth is by allowing each side to argue its case before an impartial decision maker. In this system, the prosecution and defense are responsible for presenting their evidence, examining witnesses, and making arguments. The judge acts as a neutral referee, ensuring that the trial follows the rules of evidence and procedure, while the jury, where applicable, decides the facts of the case. Historically, this approach evolved from English common law, where adversarial principles were designed to limit state power and protect individual rights. In the US, this philosophy was further shaped by the Constitution, especially through amendments that guarantee such rights such as the right to counsel and the right to a fair trial. This historical context is crucial to understanding why the American system is adversarial at its core. One of the core components of this adversarial legal process is the right to counsel, as mentioned above. The Sixth Amendment guarantees that every defendant has the right to an attorney, which is fundamental to ensuring fairness. However, the quality of representation can vary significantly, particularly for indigent defendants who rely on public defenders. Public defenders often face overwhelming caseloads and limited resources, raising concerns about equitable access to justice. Another element is the presumption of innocence, a principle that underscores the requirement for the prosecution to prove the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This standard sets a high bar for the prosecution, reflecting the belief that it is better for a guilty person to go free than for an innocent person to be wrongly convicted. The adversarial process also places significant importance on cross-examination and the presumption of evidence, the presentation of evidence. Cross-examination is considered one of the most effective tools for testing the credibility and reliability of witnesses. The rules governing evidence are strict, often excluding evidence obtained unlawfully or without proper authorization, reflecting a commitment to fairness and the protection of individual rights. The jury system is another defining feature of the American adversarial process. Unlike many other systems where judges play a more direct role in determining guilt or innocence, the U.S. places this responsibility in the hands of a jury composed of ordinary citizens. This practice aims to democratize justice and involve the community directly in the legal process. However, it also introduces variables related to jury bias, understanding of legal concepts, and potentially susceptibility to persuasive rhetoric rather than objective facts. There's the obvious and important role of attorneys. Defense and prosecution attorneys play a central role in presenting evidence, cross-examining witnesses, and making arguments. Each side is responsible for gathering and presenting evidence to support its case. Equally pivotal are the guarantees in the U.S. Constitution of the right to a fair trial, including the right to counsel, the right to remain silent, and the right to a public jury trial. The jury, composed of citizens, decides the outcome based on the evidence presented by both sides. And to emphasize again, there is the presumption of innocence. Defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, placing a high burden of proof on the prosecution. The adversarial system has several strengths, particularly in protecting individual rights and maintaining transparency. The open and public nature of trials, combined with the rigorous cross-examination of evidence, creates a robust framework for challenging abuses of power and protecting defendants' rights. The system encourages diligent representation, as each side is motivated to present the best possible case. However, criticisms of the adversarial system are also notable. There are significant disparities in resources between state-funded public defenders and well-funded prosecutors, which can create imbalances and affect case outcomes. Critics argue that the system can sometimes encourage a win-at-all-costs mentality, where the focus shifts from seeking justice to securing a victory. Additionally, the reliance on a jury of peers can present challenges, such as potential biases and varying levels of legal comprehension. The adversarial model contrasts sharply with the inquisitorial system, where judges take an active role in investigating and questioning witnesses. In many European countries, for example, judges are involved in the evidence-gathering process, which can lead to a quicker and more efficient trials, but may not provide the same level of protection for individual rights. Some countries have adopted hybrid models, blending adversarial and inquisitorial elements, which offer a different balance of efficiency, fairness, and truth-seeking. Now let's make a brief and general comparison with Pakistan's criminal justice system. There is a mixed inquisitorial adversarial legal model in Pakistan, meaning Pakistan's criminal justice system comprises both adversarial and inquisitorial elements. The legal framework is largely based on British common law, similar to the US, but it also retains features from colonial-era legal structures and Islamic law. Judges in Pakistan play a more proactive role in investigating cases compared to their American counterparts. They may question witnesses, seek additional evidence, and actively guide court proceedings. And this system emphasizes written evidence and documentation, and the judge's role includes evaluating whether the evidence presented is sufficient for a conviction. So what about the contours of judicial involvement in Pakistan? In Pakistan, the judge is more than just a passive arbiter. They have the authority to question witnesses directly, summon additional evidence, and actively seek the truth. The role contrasts with the relatively passive, neutral stance of judges in the U.S. adversarial model, where they ensure fair proceedings without directing the case. As far as the role of attorneys, While defense and prosecution attorneys in Pakistan present their cases, they may not have the same level of independence or resources as those in the US system. The judge's active involvement means that lawyers must often work more closely with the court than in the American context. In Pakistan's case, there are significant procedural safeguards and rights in the context. With regard to the rights of the accused in Pakistan, constitutional rights exist for fair trials and legal representation, but their implementation varies significantly. Access to a robust defense can be limited by socio-economic status, and public defenders are less common compared to the U.S. reliance on both public defenders and private counsel. In addition, the presumption of innocence is theoretically upheld, but practical limitations such as extended pre-trial detention and delayed court processes can affect the fairness and speed of justice. What about the central issues of evidence and burden of proof in Pakistan? The burden of proof in Pakistan still lies with the prosecution, but the role of the judge in evaluating evidence is much more active. Evidence can include both oral and documentary proofs, with a strong emphasis on formal documentation and written records reflecting a more inquisitorial approach. Nevertheless, one of the core differences between the US and Pakistan is the jury system versus judge-based decisions. The US employs a jury system where a group of citizens determines the verdict based on the evidence presented. This aspect democratizes the process and incorporates community participation in delivering justice. On the other hand, Pakistan does not have a jury system. Judges are solely responsible for delivering verdicts in both criminal and civil cases. This approach reflects a more centralized control of judicial outcomes, relying on the expertise and discretion of the judge rather than lay citizens. Let's also look at the cultural and religious context. Pakistan's legal system is influenced by a blend of British common law and Islamic law, Sharia. In certain cases, particularly those involving personal or family matters, Sharia principles may guide judicial decisions. This mixed system can lead to different interpretations and applications of justice compared to the secular common law-based system in the United States. And there are, of course, social and political factors at play here as well. In Pakistan, social and political dynamics such as tribal affiliations, religious considerations, and political influence can affect the impartiality of judicial proceedings. The U.S. system also faces issues of bias, but these are addressed through constitutional safeguards, appeals, and reforms aimed at reducing systemic inequalities. Finally, what are recent reforms and innovations in the American criminal justice system which may have some value in Pakistan as well? Recent reforms in the U.S. are aimed to address some of the criticisms of the adversarial system. For instance, public defender funding has been a significant focus, as well as efforts to reduce bail disparities and explore alternative dispute resolution methods. Additionally, technology is transforming the courtroom, with digital evidence, virtual courtrooms, and AI potentially reshaping how adversarial proceedings unfold. The adversarial legal process remains a defining feature of American criminal justice system, balancing the protection of individual rights with the pursuit of justice. While it has its strengths and weaknesses, this process underscores the American commitment to due process and fairness. Moving forward, it is essential to continue refining and reforming this system to address its shortcomings while preserving its core values. Indeed, there is now speculation on potential future changes in the adversarial process in response to evolving societal values, legal precedents, and technological advancements. Moving forward, it is essential to continue refining and reforming the system to address these shortcomings. The comparison between the American and Pakistani criminal justice system highlights how different legal philosophies shape their respective approaches to justice. The U.S.'s adversarial model emphasizes procedural fairness, rigorous advocacy, and the protection of individual rights, whereas Pakistan's mixed inquisitorial adversarial model balances these elements with a more active role for judges and a legal framework influenced by both common law and Islamic principles. Understanding these differences provides insight into how diverse systems seek to administer justice in ways that reflect their unique histories, cultures, and societal values. Thank you very much.